At Christmas dinner, Grandpa's question froze me. My parents revealed changed everything. I will never forget that day. The air was thick with laughter and the smell of rosemary and turkey, but the moment Grandpa leaned forward, his brows knitted, everything shifted. I felt the warmth of the fire crackling dim behind me. The room fell into an eerie silence, like the calm before a storm. His eyes pierced through the festive cheer, and for a fleeting second, I thought my heart would stop. What do you know about our family's past? His voice, gravelly and serious, echoed against the walls adorned with twinkling lights. My breath caught in my throat. I looked around the table, searching for comfort, but everyone else was as bewildered as I was. My mom's fork clattered against her plate, a harsh sound slicing through the tension. Dad stared blankly, his usual jovial expression wiped from his face. Then the truths began to spill out. I remember my sister's wide eyes reflecting the glow of the chandelier, her innocent confusion mirroring my own. "What are you talking about, Grandpa?" she asked, her voice trembling. We were taught to embrace our family history, but none of this felt right. A heavy weight hung in the air when my parents exchanged glances, tension pulsing between them. Mom finally spoke. "It's time you both knew," she said, her voice breaking, the cracks revealing years of withheld fears. "There are parts of our family we've kept secret." Dark parts. Her words tasted bitter, like ashes in my mouth. Images flooded my mind as she spoke, whispers of distant relatives, shadowy figures who never appeared at family gatherings. Grandpa leaned back, arms crossed, the mystery deepening in his expression. I could almost hear the ticking of the clock, each second stretching painfully. The room felt smaller, suffocating. Mom mentioned something about betrayal, a family torn apart by choices made long ago. Was she talking about us? About the bonds I thought were unbreakable? Grandpa's gaze never wavered. It was like he was challenging us to confront whatever lay hidden. I could feel my stomach twist, a cold dread wrapping around my core. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a moment. We were left in a void, hearts racing, the uncertainty wrapping around us like a thick fog. When the lights returned, my breath was quickened. I was searching for answers, but only more questions swarmed my mind. What did I really know about my family? Mom hesitated. She couldn't continue. The fear settled in her eyes, and I felt the weight of the moment crashing down. "We've kept this hidden long enough," she eventually whispered, almost to herself. But just as I was about to ask for more, to probe deeper into the abyss, the sound of glass shattering interrupted. Every head snapped towards the noise, all eyes wide in panic. Was it a sign? The tension swelled again, palpable, thick as syrup. My heart raced, spilling over with 100 thoughts, none making sense. And just like that, I felt a horrific understanding that perhaps the secrets my family held weren't just old stories. They could carve new paths in our lives. Would we even survive them? My mind screamed for answers as the walls felt like they were closing in. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echoes of the shattered glass lingered in the room, blending into the hushed murmurs of confusion and concern. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, each thud amplifying the knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. Dad darted out of the dining room, his footsteps heavy against the wooden floor as he rushed to inspect the cause of the commotion. My mother remained frozen, her pale face a mask of worry, while my sister's small hand grasped mine, her fingers trembling. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would tip the fragile balance of normalcy that hung precariously in the air. Mom swallowed hard, her gaze fixated on the empty chair across from her, the one that had belonged to my Uncle Leo, who disappeared from our lives years ago, a specter of family secrets cloaked in shadow. It struck me then the irony of this evening, bursting with celebration, now threatened by buried truths. Dad returned after a moment, shaking his head. "Just an accident in the kitchen," he said, but his voice felt strained, lacking the strength he'd normally exert in reassuring us. I could see the lines of worry creasing his forehead, deepening as he glanced around the table. My mind raced, plagued by a brewing tempest of questions, yet I felt an invisible barrier preventing me from voicing them. "Can you just tell us what this is about?" I prompted, my voice cracking just enough to betray the urgency of my emotions. "Why talk about the past now? What happened to Uncle Leo?" Mom blinked rapidly, as though the mention of his name summoned shadows from the depths of her heart. "He chose to walk away," she finally confessed, the pain swimming within her eyes so palpable it sent shivers cascading down my spine. "But it was more than just a choice. It was a consequence of everything we're hinting at tonight." My sister interjected, "But why? What did he do?" She was grappling with this sudden revelation just as fervently, desperate for clarity in a world that seemed intent on unraveling. Her question hung in the air, and for a moment, I nearly forgot my own fears as the air turned electric, weighted with anticipation. The glimmer of the Christmas lights felt stark and unreal against the burgeoning darkness of our family's history. The truth was bound to come out, but I had no way of knowing how it would affect us all. Uncle Leo was caught in the middle of family disputes that escalated, Mom stammered, the words tumbling from her lips like loose marbles rolling across a floor. "He made decisions based on his beliefs, and some didn't agree. He lost everyone." As the layers of history began to peel away, I felt a strange mix of empathy and fear. I couldn't help but think, could those decisions live within some of us, waiting to surface? Would I someday find myself faced with the same impossible choices? A flicker of resolve ignited in me. "So we're just supposed to sit here and accept this?" I demanded, mostly to assuage my own growing agitation. "Pretend this isn't going to change everything?" Mom's expression shifted, the anguish etched in her features revealing a pain far deeper than just a family story. "We're not trying to change anything or keep anything from you," she replied softly, her voice strained yet soothing. "We just want you two to be prepared. Because it's not just about Uncle Leo, it's about our entire family lineage. There are truths that can hurt or heal, but how could truths be healing if they carried the weight of so much sorrow?" The heater kicked to life, the rumble resonating through my bones as the fire crackled louder behind us. Time felt fluid, stretching beyond moments, creating a tense pause before the inevitable next words were spoken. Suddenly, the phone in the center of the table rang, its shrill sound slicing through the thick atmosphere. I hastily reached for it, my fingers shaking, anticipation bubbling in my chest. What if it's someone from the family? I wondered aloud, as if that could bridge the chasm forming in my heart. That I glanced at Dad, who seemed frozen in place, lost in some unspoken thought. He nodded slightly, the gesture somehow muted in the dim light, but it felt like the consensus, a need for answers. As I picked it up, my heart raced, the world around me narrowing to the voice emerging from the line. "Is this Alice?" It was a stranger's voice, laced with urgency. "You need to listen carefully. We need to talk about your uncle." A chill swept over me, a chilling gust that seemed to echo the growing turbulence within the room. I stole a glance at my family, realizing that nothing would ever be the same after this call. "Who is this?" I whispered, my throat tightening as dread filled my veins, but the voice on the phone continued, oblivious to my spiraling thoughts. "You don't know who I am yet, but you need to know there are secrets about Leo that affect all of you. You need to be ready for the truth to come crashing down." And just like that, the air shifted violently in the room around me, and I stood at the precipice of an unknown truth that threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. The cliffhanger that mismanaged hope and despair left an acrid taste in my mouth. Would I be able to bear the weight of the revelations to come? Or had the past finally caught up to us, forever altering the course of our lives? The air in the dining room was suddenly too thick to breathe, weighed down by the anticipation of unspoken truths. My heart raced as the voice on the phone continued, words tumbling into my ear like stones tossed into a well, each one echoing with gravity. You can't afford to dismiss this. There's a storm brewing in your family, and it's time you all faced it. Who are you? I managed to whisper again, desperation creeping into my voice. My fingers ached tightly around the phone, but I was too entranced by my own fear to let go. Just a friend of Leos, the voice replied. It sounded older, tinged with a familiarity that only heightened my sense of unease. There's much more at stake than you realize. When he left, he took more than just memories with him. There's a reason no one talks about him and his decisions. You need to talk to your family, Alice, before it's too late. The mention of the word late struck me with a chill, reverberating through me. My mind began to imagine the cascading effects of whatever secrets loomed silently in the dark corners of our family's history. That I could feel my mother's gaze piercing into me, though I dared not look away from the phone. My father, once a towering figure of unshakable strength, now appeared small and muted in the shadows behind her. I wanted to scream for clarity, for safety, but what hope could I hold on to when it felt like we were standing on the edge of an abyss? Gradually, the voice began to share fragments of Leo's story, each revealing piece pulling at the threads of my heart like an archer's taut bowstring. It wasn't just about him leaving, Alice. He was protecting you all from something far more sinister. Decisions were made that night, decisions that are echoing through generations. My sister's hand wrapped around my arm, grounding me with her warmth. In the silence that followed, I felt her small breaths, quick and nervous, mirroring my own spiraling thoughts. She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes, begging me to bridge the invisible gap forming not just between the past and present but within our very family. Listen, I said slowly, resolving the fears within me. We can't let our lives be dictated by shadows. Whatever the truth may hold, we need to face it together. Well, speak with Mom and Dad. I turned my gaze finally, seeing a flicker of hope but also apprehension reflected back from their faces. Good, the voice on the line coaxed gently. They need to know the storm is coming. But the truth you uncover will challenge everything they've built. You're stronger than they realize. Just be ready for the fallout. The line went dead, and as silence enveloped the room, so too did the weight of this newfound knowledge. Mom and Dad looked at each other, an unspoken language passing between them that invited more questions than answers. Who was that? Mom finally ventured, her voice trembling as if her own denial was beginning to crack. What do you mean, Alice? I swallowed hard, fighting against an overwhelming tide of emotion. It was a friend of Uncle Leo's. He said there are secrets that affect all of us. That we might not know the whole truth of what happened. Why? Mother's face blanched, eyes wide with a combination of fear and something darker, shame. Guilt. Dad's shoulders dropped, the weight of family burdens visibly crushing him as he took a step forward, but halted short as if fearing the ground might give way beneath him. What secrets? How much did this person share? Dad's voice quivered with a mix of anger and anxiety. I was caught in between, feeling the heat of their frustration simmer against the chill of uncertainty. Just that leaving was only part of what happened. There's more, and it's going to challenge everything we've known as a family. But Uncle Leo was just. Mom started, but the words drifted off, as if the very sound of his name conjured a bruise too sore to touch. A family member, I stated firmly, feeling the fierce urge to defend a man I had never met but whose absence had loomed over every family gathering like an omnipresent ghost. But what could justify that choice? Dad interjected, his voice cracking under the strain of repressed feelings. The dam inside him showed signs of giving way. What possibly could? Maybe it's time we find out, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. It's time to pull back the curtain, no matter how painful. The air felt charged, swirling with the heavy emotions that coursed through us like a current, just waiting to surge out of control. As we looked at one another, a mix of determination and fear settled among us. This was no ordinary Christmas, and the path back to our unity had become treacherous. Then a scratch at the door jolted us all. My heart raced again, as I exchanged worried glances with my family. Who could be coming now? Had someone overheard the phone call? I stepped toward the door, hesitant yet compelled, trepidation pooling in my gut. With trembling hands, I twisted the knob and opened it. Standing there was a figure cloaked in shadows, a familiar face that made my breath catch, the last person I ever expected to see. Uncle Leo. The moment I laid eyes on Uncle Leo standing in the doorway, the world blurred into an ethereal haze, his presence both a shock and a breath of hope. It was as if he emerged from the very depths of my family's untold Talisa ghost who had finally decided to break the spectral chains binding him. "Alice," he said softly, his voice rich with an emotion I could not yet decipher. "Uncle Leo," I breathed, the name tinged with reverence and disbelief. I could hardly recognize him, the years had carved deeper lines into his face, and yet, there lay a familiar warmth in his eyes, those same eyes that I had heard about in hushed conversations over the years. "Can I come in?" he asked cautiously, glancing under the weight of our stunned silence. "Of course. Please." I stepped aside, my heart pounding, ushering him into the dining room. A low hum of discomfort seeped through the air as he crossed the threshold, the atmosphere thickening with buried memories and unspoken truths. My family stood frozen. Mom's expression twisted from surprise to wariness, while Dad's posture radiated a mix of anger and relief, like a boy encountering his lost kite flying once again against the sky. "That I know this is unexpected," Uncle Leo began, his voice wavering slightly as he faced my parents, "but I really need to talk to you all." "What do you want, Leo?" Dad spat, tension crackling like electricity in the air. "You left us. You chose to walk away." "I can't change the past," Leo replied, brows knit with pain. "But there are things I never wanted to say, not because I didn't love you but because I feared it would only complicate matters further." As I watched the deep furrows on my father's brow deepen, I felt myself bracing for the emotional fallout that was sure to follow. Dad's eyes flitted between Leo and Mom, and for a moment, I wondered if he might turn away, retracting into the safety of silence. But Mom stepped forward, a flicker of courage ignited within her. "Then tell us," she urged, her voice fierce yet fragile. "Whatever secrets exist, we need to hear them, all of them." Uncle Leo's gaze dropped, a storm of emotions played out across his features. "It's about the night I left, the choices I made. They weren't only mine." He glanced at each of us in turn, a man burdened, and a sense of gravity anchored the moment in place. "What do you mean?" I asked quietly, feeling as though my heart had taken residence in my throat. "There were things happening behind the scenes. Dangerous things. I thought taking myself out of the equation would protect you all, but in truth, I only opened the door for tenebrous shadows to loom over our family. I believed the lack of my presence would keep you safe, but I only buried the truth deeper." Dad's hands balled into fists, knuckles whitening. "You think disappearing was the answer? All it did was deepen the wounds we never healed." "Enough." Mom interjected, the urgency in her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "We can't do this now. We've spent too many years avoiding the conversations we need to have." I felt a trickle of panic surge within me as I caught a glimpse of the clock on the wall, a ticking reminder of time passing. "What were you protecting us from, Uncle Leo? What was so bad that you felt leaving was the I can't even say only way?" He inhaled sharply, glancing down the hall as if contemplating the ghosts that lingered there. "Promises I made, secrets that were not mine to tell, and threats that I thought had dissipated." "Threats?" Dad whispered, the word laden with fear. "What threats?" Uncle Leo hesitated, as though the weight of this revelation threatened to send him crumbling. "They've come back," he finally admitted, voice trembling. "And they're worse than before." A knot tightened in my chest. "Worse than before? What are you talking about?" Just then, the doorbell rang again, echoing ominously in the charged silence that followed. A chill skittered up my spine. I glanced at my parents, both wrapped in a fog of disbelief and fear, and then back to Leo, who looked as if he was bracing for impact. "That I need you to understand," he continued, his voice urgent. "Whatever is behind that door, it's connected to our past, and it might hold the key to why I had to leave." The tone of urgency in his voice seized me, and as I exchanged a worried glance with my sister, the clock continued its relentless ticking, each second meaning more than I dared to acknowledge. "Shouldn't we see who it is?" My sister's voice quavered next to me, her fear palpable, intertwining with the uncertainty that hung like AFOG.NO. Uncle Leo said abruptly, a fierce storm gathering in his gaze. You need to stay together. Whatever happens next, we face it as a family or not at all. The doorbell rang once more, relentless and unyielding, the sound reverberating through the heavy silence, heralding not just visitors but a revelation poised to shake the very foundation of our family. As I stood in that dimly lit hallway, grappling with the weight of Leo's words and the unknown figure waiting just beyond the door, the ground beneath us felt like it could give way at any moment. The echoes of our past were surfacing, threatening to swallow us whole. And then, startlingly, I realized the storm had already begun. The doorbell echoed again, and a deep silence enveloped the room, stealing the breath from my lungs. Uncle Leo's eyes locked onto mine, fear and resolve swirling in their depths. My heart raced, thrumming in my chest as I stood frozen between the past I barely understood and the uncertainty about to unfold before us. Whoever it is, we can't let them in until we're ready, Leo said, urgency lacing his voice. His gaze darted toward my parents, lingering on their tense forms, each breath a silent plea to protect what little family we had left. Shouldn't we see what they want? My sister asked, anxiety trembling in her tone. I'm not yet ready to face whatever storm is waiting beyond that door, I admitted, though the reek of dread pooled in my stomach, pulling me down into its depths. Mom grabbed Dad's hand, grounding herself while her eyes flitted between Uncle Leo's troubled expression and the door, as if trying to decipher the unvoiced fears that haunted us all. We can't keep hiding, she finally said, her voice edging from determination to bewilderment, but we have to be careful, Leo. We can't afford to take any chances. Just as Uncle Leo was about to reply, the doorbell rang once more, this time accompanied by a hesitant knock. The sound resonated, sharp and insistent against the stillness surrounding us. My pulse quickened as I stole another glance at the clock. It mocked us at that moment, the hands moving too slowly, torturing my frayed nerves. Tell us what you know, I implored Uncle Leo, a sense of urgency threatening to unravel everything I thought I knew. We can't be blindsided again. Whatever's waiting for us out there. My words trailed off as I shared a look with my sister, the shimmering glint of tears brimming in her eyes. His expression softened as the shadows danced across his face. It's about the business your father thought he could escape. The debts, the threats, they don't just stay buried. I believed I was sparing you by leaving, Booty should have known those ghosts would rise when you least expect it. The knot of fear twisted tighter in my chest as understanding dawned. We were still ensnared in the echoes of our family's past. What do you mean, Uncle Leo? I pushed, needing clarity amidst the chaos swirling around us. What ghosts? What business? They've returned with a vengeance, he whispered ominously. And they want something I can't give. A chill gripped the air as I heard the knock again, louder this time, a grim reminder of the reality we were about to face. Maybe we need to know, Leo, my mother urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Whatever it is, it can't be any worse than what we're living through now. As Dad's hand tightened around hers, I felt the gravity of his resentment. It was like a weight pressing down, irremovable and painful. You left us, Leo. You don't get to pick and choose when to reappear, especially not with threats hanging over us. Please, Leo pleaded, his face contorting with the strain of an unseen burden. Let me explain. I thought the doorbell rang again, jolting all of us from our fraying nerves, the sound slicing through our tense standoff like a serrated knife. What if it's them? My sister whimpered, her voice trembling. That it won't be, Uncle Leo reassured her, but there was an intensity in his gaze that suggested otherwise. Maybe we should just face it together, I suggested, trying to breathe through the anxious energy prickling my skin. What if there? Just before I could finish my thought, the door swung open, revealing a stranger cloaked in shadows, their face partially obscured by a deep hood. Is this the residence of Leo Matthews? The figure inquired, their voice as cold as the approaching winter winds, sending a fresh wave of panic crashing through me. Yes, Uncle Leo responded, stepping slightly forward, his face a mask of fright and resolve. What do you want? The stranger's eyes glinted in the low light, something ominous swirling behind them. It's time you learned the truth about your past, Leo. There are debts to pay, and the clock is ticking. As recognition flickered in Uncle Leo's eyes, the air turned suffocating, charged with unspoken horrors from days long buried. Wait! I shouted, stepping in front of my uncle instinctively. What do you mean, debts? The figure's lips curved into a cryptic smile, one that sent ripples of dread down my spine. Everything you've been trying to hide will soon come out of the shadows. It's time to confront your family's legacy. Despite the chill enveloping my heart, a flame of defiance sparked within me. Whatever this stranger had to share, we would face it together, just as Uncle Leo had insisted. Uncle Leo looked at me, fear etched in his features but faded into the background as my eyes remained locked on the stranger. We're not afraid of the past, I stated, my voice resonating with unexpected strength. Your family should be, the voice replied, sending a chill through the marrow of my bones, because the past never forgets. And with those words, I realized that this new encounter had stripped away any sense of security I once felt, throwing our lives deeper into uncertainty and forcing us to confront not just the echoes of yesterday but the very real consequences it carried into our present. The storm was far from over. The shadows in the room deepened as silence followed the stranger's ominous declaration. My heart hammered against my ribcage like a trapped bird, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere. I could feel my family's gaze on me, a mix of dread and hope swirling around us like a fierce storm, binding us together despite the shattering fears that hung heavily in the air. Leo shifted slightly, uncertainty flickering through his eyes. What do you know? He asked, his voice taut. It was a low murmur, a desperate plea wrapped in regret. This was not just about his past anymore, it was about our future, and I sensed that he, too, understood the weight of that truth. The stranger stepped forward, cloaked in an aura of foreboding, their voice cold and unyielding. I know more than you realize, Leo. The debts are not just monetary, they are tangled in blood and betrayal. You thought you could escape, but fate has different plans. Stop. Dad's voice boomed unexpectedly, shaking me from my daze. What do you want with our family? Whatever it is, you have no power here. Anger radiated from him, but I could see the cracks in his bravado, the way his hands clenched tightly at his side, fingers trembling with suppressed emotion. The stranger chuckled softly, an unsettling sound that sent a wave of nausea through me. Power? This isn't about power. This is about survival, retribution, and finding the hidden truths you've all buried deeply. Only then can you begin to pay what is owed. My thoughts struggled to catch up with the rapid course of events. It felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground beneath me crumbling away. What hidden truths? I asked, forcing myself to focus through the turmoil. What do you want us to know? Everything you think you understand is skewed, fractured by the lies your family constructed. I'm offering a chance to uncover the reality your parents fear so deeply. Or you can continue living in the dark, bound by the shackles of ignorance. The hooded figure's eyes glinted maliciously, each word laced with disdain. That I looked back at my parents, their expressions etched in distress. The silence grew heavy, the unspoken secrets between us coiling tighter. Please, can't we just talk about this? My sister's voice broke, a tender fragility that exposed cracks in our facade. We just want to know the truth. But the stranger stepped back, shaking their head, a chilling smile curling at the edges of their lips. The truth is waiting, but first, you must confront the fractures within yourselves. There will be a reckoning, and you aren't prepared for the revelations that will emerge. Without warning, the stranger turned on their heel and disappeared into the shadows, leaving an oppressive silence that thrummed in the air like a plucked string. 1,000 questions swirled around my mind, tangling with the dread that had settled like a fog in my chest. It'll be okay, I whispered to my sister, despite the lurking uncertainty. We'll figure it out together. But even as I spoke, the tremor in my own words betrayed me, a reflection of the fear that gnawed at my insides. Mom shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I didn't want you kids involved in this. I thought I could protect you. I thought it was over. Her voice cracked, and the weight of her defeat settled around us like a thick cloud. You can't protect us from the truth forever, I countered gently, though the words felt like a betrayal. Maybe we need to hear what they have to say. A distant siren wailed outside, reminding me that the world continued to spin, indifferent to our growing turmoil. I glanced at the clock again, the hands seeming to mock me. Time was running out, and I felt as though we were standing on the edge of something profound, something that could unravel us entirely. Wanting to break the crushing tension, I turned to Uncle Leo. You have to tell us everything. We can't fight a battle when we don't know the rules. And if there are debts, what do you mean about blood and betrayal? He faltered, the shadows deepening in his eyes. It's more complicated than I can express right now, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. It's something that connects back generations, decisions made by those you'll never meet, all leading to this very moment. Then we'll face it together, I declared, searching for the flickers of hope that were buried beneath the fear. Whatever it is, we stand as a family. But amidst the determined murmurs of support, my sister's voice piped up timidly, what if it tears us apart instead? Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, sound sharp and startling against the backdrop of our fraying resolve. We turned as one, hearts racing, as the fear that had been lurking in the corners of our minds surged to life. Stay here, Uncle Leo commanded, a fierce protectiveness flaring into his eyes as he rushed toward the noise. Those words hung in the air like a warning, full of promise and dreadful portent. As we stood there, poised at the line between uncertainty and revelation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were truths lying in wait, poised to surface and dismantle everything we had ever known. I looked at my family, trembling but resolute, and knew one thing for sure, the storm was inevitably about to strike. The atmosphere grew thicker with tension as Leo disappeared into the kitchen, the door swinging on its hinges with a soft creak that felt eerily loud. I could hear the faint clatter of dishes scraping against one another, dishes that had been laid out for our family dinner just hours earlier, now a mere prelude to chaos. My stomach twisted with anxiety. What if whatever had shattered the calm was more than just a broken plate? I squeezed my sister's hand tightly in a bid to anchor us both. Her wide eyes darted around the room, searching, panicked, as if the very fabric of our lives had begun to fray before our eyes. Let's give him a bit of time, I whispered, hoping my voice carried enough confidence to hold the ground beneath us. But inside me, doubt swirled like a tempest. I thought of the stranger's words, the darkness creeping into our quaint home, taunting us with hints of hidden truths that threatened to cascade and expose our family's deepest scars. Suddenly, the door to the kitchen burst open. Leo stumbled back, face pale as a ghost, but not before I caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows behind him. Come on! He shouted to the rest of us, his voice shaky yet urgently commanding. We didn't hesitate, shuffling past him into the unknown. As I crossed the threshold, the scene was surreal. The kitchen was in disarray, dishes scattered across the floor, some shattered beneath the weight of an open cabinet that had come unhinged, its contents spilling like secrets left to rot. But it wasn't just the mess that caught my attention, it was what Leo was shielding, a figure cloaked in shadow, one that seemed to absorb the light around them. Who's this? I asked, voice trembling as fear washed over me again. The figure stepped into the faint glow of the hanging lamps, revealing a face that was familiar yet foreign. An old family friend, Arthur, his face etched with worry and purpose. Arthur. My mother breathed, disbelief darting across her features. What are you doing here? It's not safe, Arthur urged, his voice urgent but low as if fearing the walls themselves were listening. I came to warn you. Warn us about what? Dad stepped forward, his stance protective, eyes narrowing. The debts. There's more at stake than you know. The stranger you encountered, they aren't just anyone. They're connected to everything we've been trying to keep from you, everything tied to your father's past. Each word seemed to seep into the room, igniting a palpable tension, and I felt the room shrink, closing in like a vice. What do you mean? What past? The questions tumbled out before I could rein them in, my heart pounding as adrenaline crackled within me. Let him speak. Leo interjected, urgency lacing his tone. Please, Arthur. We need to understand what we're facing. Arthur took a steadying breath, his gaze flickering to the tools hanging above the kitchen counter as he gathered his thoughts. Years ago, before you even existed, a choice was made. A sacrifice, if you will, that tied your family to theirs. Secrets were buried deep, hidden from you to shield you from the fallout, but those burdens don't simply fade away. The weight of his words sank into the silence like a stone dropped into water, rippling into each of us. My mind reeled, a choice. Sacrifices. I felt lost in a sea of confusion. Sacrifice. What has this to do with us? My sister whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising tension, the fear evident in her demeanor. Trust me, the debt isn't merely financial. It's a tether that binds you to the past. His voice cracked slightly as he continued, and that, stranger, it was only the beginning. They know what you don't, what remains buried. You're all in danger, danger. I echoed, my pulse pounding loudly in my ears. From what? There are others, he replied. Others who see the unraveling of your family as an opportunity, who will do whatever it takes to reclaim what was lost. Just as the gravity of his words sank in, a crash resounded from just outside our window. We all jumped, hearts racing as our instincts surged. I turned, looking out into the snow-dusted darkness. Stay back. Leo cautioned again, positioning himself protectively in front of us as he peered through the glass. For an agonizing moment, the world felt suspended, like breath held before the dive into icy waters. Then, a flash of movement, a figure darting across the snow, cloaked in black, like the stranger. My heart stopped. They know we're here, Arthur whispered, his voice taut. We must leave. Now. The storm has already begun, but before I could process the urgency in his tone, my mother's small voice cut through the tension like glass shattering. What does that mean for us? What happens next? The room spiraled into disarray again as panic surged anew. Around us, the walls felt like they were closing in, filled with questions and unresolved truths. I had hoped for clarity, for the semblance of control, but all I felt was the impending inevitability of chaos. And then, Arthur met my gaze, seriousness etched into his features. You need to decide, all of you. Do you want the truth, no matter the cost? My breath caught in my throat, caught between the fear of shadows and the flickering hope amidst the tempest. In that moment, I felt a chilling certainty creep over me. The choice we were about to make could change everything, for better or worse. As the distant thudding of footsteps approached, vibrant knots of dread tightened within me, but there was an undeniable resolve flickering alongside the fear. Together or apart, the truths waiting within the storm were about to break through, and where we would land was a tale yet to be told. The kitchen felt like a cage, the walls crowded with unresolved tensions and flickering shadows. My heart raced as I stood at the precipice of uncertainty, Arthur's words weaving through my mind like an insistent whisper. Do you want the truth, no matter the cost? The question echoed louder every passing second, as the unease within our family coiled tighter around us. That we need to leave now. Leo insisted, his voice slicing through the thick air, urgency fueling each syllable. But the weight of Arthur's revelation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. What truth awaited us outside? Would it bring more danger? We can't just leave. Not without knowing what's happening. I protested, my voice trembling. I felt small, almost helpless against the wave of chaos threatening to crash upon us. Please, Arthur urged again, desperation creeping into his tone. We don't have time to debate. Trust me, what lies waiting for you in the dark won't just be a storm, it will uproot everything you ever knew. My mother shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes as she looked at my father. We can't run. We have to face this together. We can't just turn our backs on the truth. The tension was palpable as I took in their expressions. My parents, stoic and resolute, wore the weight of their secrets like heavy cloaks around their shoulders. I could sense their fear, the fear of what lay ahead, of what would be revealed, but also of what they had carried for so long. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Is there something you haven't told us? I pressed, my heart pounding relentlessly against my ribs. If there's something wrong, we have the right to know. Every family has its burdens, my father responded, his voice thick with emotion. We've shielded you from those burdens your entire lives. But is running away the answer? Is that what you've always done? My sister chimed in, her voice louder now as she stood next to me, drawn to the truth as if it were an unquenchable flame. This is different. Dad's voice rose with sudden intensity. We've fought to protect you, but the darkness, it doesn't just stay hidden forever. It will come for us. And then there was a pause, the room inhaling as if it, too, was bracing for the inevitable. Arthur stood tense, ready to usher us out, but I could see the anguish swirling in my parents' eyes, a silent war raging inside them. Every second stretched as if the very foundation of our family was quaking. But before anyone could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps drew close, crunching through the snow outside, echoing eerily in the tense quiet. All eyes turned to the window again, breaths held in anticipation. I discreetly reached for my sister's hand, squeezing it as reassurance, the small comfort tethering us amidst the chaos. Whatever is coming, we will face it together, I whispered just loud enough for her to hear. Both parents nodded in silent agreement, their expressions hardened by resolve. A flicker of solidarity ignited within me. We could confront whatever found us, but the truth, the raw and agonizing truth, had to be unearthed first. The footsteps stopped just outside, and the air turned electric as we exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. Are you ready? Arthur asked, scanning the worried faces of my family, his tone soft yet fierce, urging us to acknowledge our reality. Before any of us could find an answer, the window shattered, scattering shards of glass across the floor, and a figure plunged into the kitchen, snow swirling around them like a dark storm. The air grew thick with tension, suddenly drowning us in a chilling silence as the figure rose, revealing a face I recognized, a wiry man with sharp features, pale skin, and eyes that seemed to burn with a relentless fire. Time's up, he stated flatly, and I felt the world tilt, every instinct screaming at me to retreat. Avery! Arthur shouted, rushing towards the intruder, but a cold smile creased the man's lips as he stepped farther into the kitchen, the darkness of his presence rippling like a tangible thing. Guess who's been keeping tabs on your little family? Your father's past is much stickier than you'd think. Heart pounding, I wanted to scream, every instinct begged me to run, but curiosity had rooted my feet into place. Who are you? I demanded, the strength of my words masking a gut-wrenching dread. The man chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. Let's just say I'm here to collect what's owed. You've danced around fate long enough. It's time for the past to catch up with you, and in that moment, the true weight of Arthur's warning settled upon me. A debt we couldn't possibly fathom had finally arrived, and with it, a chilling revelation coiling around my heart like ice: we could never truly escape our past. Faced with an unforeseen danger that had invaded our sanctuary, the silence thickened, charged with the sheer magnitude of everything at stake. What else were they hiding? What truths would emerge from the unraveling chaos that now surrounded us? More terrified than ever, I held onto my sister's hand tightly, a silent oath, a plea in the shadow of the unknown looming before us. The icy chill in the air grew palpable, wrapping itself around me as I tried to comprehend the figure standing in our kitchen, uninvited and menacing. The shadows danced on the walls, taunting me with the glimpses of truths I had desperately sought, yet never wanted to find. My grip on my sister's hand tightened, her small fingers trembling in mine. Who are you? I repeated, but even I could hear the quiver in my voice, betraying my resolve. Why so curious, little mouse? He taunted, a glint of amusement flickering in his stormy eyes. I'm just here to bring the past to light. It seems your darling father has a few skeletons that need to be dragged out of their closets. He motioned towards my father, whose expression had morphed into a mask of pure dread. Enough. Arthur warned, stepping forward with an urgency that seemed to resonate with our fearful hearts. You don't have to do this. Not here. Not now. Do what? The man replied, his voice teasing. Expose the truth. Or do you want to keep pretending everything is fine? Let me remind you, no one's safe from the shadows they think they've left behind. The kitchen seemed to constrict around us, every breath I took saturated with tension. My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling but her stance unwavering. You don't have to come here like this. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, you can't wield our past against us. A lovely sentiment, he sneered, but I've learned that family isn't so easily protected. Secrets have a way of creeping back into light, especially when there's a score to settle. His words emerged like knives, sharp and relentless. I caught a glimpse of incredulity in Arthur's eyes, a flash of understanding that warned of the impending truths we were on the brink of confronting. "Leave my family out of this," Dad's voice broke through the charged atmosphere, but his bravado felt thin, a barrier made of glass and trembling hands. "Out of this?" The intruder chuckled, a sound devoid of both humor and warmth, making my skin crawl. "Oh, but you're all entangled now. You will all hear what needs to be said. You, dear Avery, are just the last little piece of this puzzle. A living reminder of mistakes long ignored." "Stop it!" I shouted, my heart thundering against the realization that there was more at stake than I had thought. "What do you want from us? What are you trying to say? Everything doesn't make sense yet, does it?" He took a step closer, and suddenly I was confronted with an unbearable weight of fear and revelation, as his gaze flicked from me to my parents. Each second felt stretched and consumed by anticipation. "What happened?" I pressed, panic lacing my voice. "What did you do?" His smile widened with an unsettling delight. "Let's just say, your father may be a little less reliable than you believe. We all have debts, and I intend to collect." With a swift movement, he plucked a photograph from his pocket, tossing it onto the kitchen table, where it landed with a slap that echoed in the stillness. Before I could even process its contents, my mother gasped, visibly paling. "Stop it!" she begged, her voice breaking as she grabbed my father's arm, searching his eyes. "Please, don't." But it was too late. The photograph depicted an idyllic family portrait, smiley faces bright and innocent. However, the familiar faces were overshadowed by the presence of a man I had never seen before, one that seemed to loom larger than life, a specter of the past that had somehow pierced through our carefully constructed normalcy. "Who is he?" I blurted, unable to connect the pieces that crashed against one another in my mind. "Someone who once mattered," the intruder said crisply, eyes locked onto my father, taunting him. "And someone who hasn't forgotten that." A wealth of emotions surged between us, thick and suffocating. My mother trembled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, while my father's jaw clenched as he struggled against whatever memory surged forth, threatening to unravel him right before our eyes. "Tell us the truth," Leo shouted then, his voice steady, the bravery of youth pushing against the shadows that surrounded us. My father stammered, hesitation cracking through the veneer he had worn so carefully. I could see him wrestling with himself, as if every word was a weight he had spent years dragging, and he was finally on the verge of dropping it. Before he could respond, the man leaned in closer, a dark figure against the veil of late evening light filtering through the broken window. "If you wish to protect your children, dear Nathaniel, then speak now. The truth will either set you free or bind you eternally." Suddenly, the air exploded with the tension of hidden choices, and I recognized the sharpness of my own fear turning into a raw resolve. "This isn't over," I heard myself say, fury and fear intertwining, refreshing my sense of purpose. "Whatever debt you think we owe, you won't tear us apart." And as I spoke those words, our gaze turned toward the intruder, my heart pounding with determination I didn't fully understand. The confrontation was far from over, the truth still drowning under layers of secrets that clung to us like a fog. But I understood one thing: we were caught in the web of their past, and we weren't going to shy away from unraveling it. A darkness stirred beneath the surface of our family, and as I held my sister's hand tighter, I knew that the choice to confront our demons would forge something strong enough to combat the encroaching shadows. Just then, there was a loud knock on the front door, followed by hurried voices muffled by the chaos inside. My heart raced anew, fear mingling with something prickly yet hopeful. Who else is here?" I whispered, panic lurching in my throat, as dread pooled in my stomach. The intruder smirked, and I could see that whatever was coming was bound to complicate matters beyond my worst nightmares. "Looks like you're going to have company," he replied with a sneer, and for an echoing moment, I felt the chilling reality settle over me like an oppressive blanket. As the pounding at the door grew frantic, I dared to wonder what other revelations awaited us. And were we truly ready to face everything that had been hidden in the shadows before it swallowed us whole? The chaos spun out of control as the knocking on the door intensified, and dread coursed through me like icy venom. The angler of shadows standing before us Avery seemed to relish the turmoil he had provoked, his smirk widening as if he thrived on the stories he threatened to unveil. The atmosphere felt electric with the looming threat of not just hidden truths but everything buried beneath those truths. Open the door. Someone shouted from outside, should we? Dad's voice broke through the tension, thick with uncertainty as he held Mom's gaze, the flickers of fear dancing in his eyes. I could see her trembling, struggling against the flood of memories in her mind, memories that now seemed perilously close to unraveling. What if it's someone who can help us? I suggested, desperation blending with hope, searching for a flicker of reassurance amid the chaos. The alternative hung heavily in the air like a loaded gun against the looming shadows of our past. Every option felt fraught with consequences. Avery leaned forward, amusement glimmering in his gaze. What help can be found in the company of ghosts? They won't save you from the debts of your lineage. The past can only complicate matters further. We can't just run away from this. My voice rose as determination surged forth, drowning out the torrents of anxiety swirling within me. I met the eyes of each family member standing together, knowing that our fight would not only salvage our future but would also reveal the potency of our unity. Whatever comes to that door, we need to face it head-on. Together. Dad's expression shifted slightly, perhaps he saw it too, the thread of resolve weaving between us. We've evaded these discussions for too long, he murmured, voice catching in emotion. We need to break this cycle. Mom took a breath, steeling herself, and I sensed her attachment to the truth, a long-buried desire grappling for air. If we're to face whatever comes next, we need to be a united front. Whatever it takes, she declared, standing tall, emboldened by her own clarity. With that newfound strength, I glanced at my sister, squeezing her hand tighter. Get ready, I said quietly, but with steel in my resolve. Whatever awaits us is part of our story. As another violent knock reverberated through the kitchen, the foundation of our family tremored with anticipation. Let's open it. If we're going to confront our past, we can't shy away from the present, I said. The others nodded, a silent pact uniting us, grounding me even as uncertainty clung like a fog around us. I stepped toward the door, every heartbeat thrumming in unison with the urgency I felt in the air. As I turned the doorknob and opened it, bracing myself for an unknown storm, the faces on the other side came into view, two familiar figures, both shocked, but I couldn't tell if it was surprise or fear that etched their features. Allison. Mom. Dad. Emily, my cousin, stood there, eyes wide with trepidation, a friend at her side. Relief washed over me, but it was mingled with a surge of apprehension. We need to talk. There's something that happened, something you all have to know. Before I could speak, the man beside her chimed in, we overheard something about debts and family secrets. We had to warn you. The air crackled, tension weaving between us as I processed the connection between their arrival and the shadows crowded around me. But in that moment, the resolve surged once more. This was our chance, a collective coming together at the precipice of our family's tumultuous past. What do you know? I pressed, feeling the flames of urgency igniting in the depths of my chest. We've been drawn into an unforeseen storm, and if you've come to help, then I need to hear everything. I turned to Avery, the intruder still lurking in the kitchen. And you, whatever role you think you're playing, it ends now. The shadows loomed, painted by silence as Avery regarded our growing united front. You think you're stronger than the whispers of the past? Every little secret buried will claw its way to the surface, and you'll be left standing in the wreckage of truths you cannot control. Maybe, I replied, heart racing, but I saw my family stand strong behind me. But only if we allow it to consume us. It's time we took charge of our own stories, no matter how painful. That's the debt we owe ourselves. I turned back to my cousin. What did you hear? As Emily and her friend exchanged worried glances, my heart pounded like a war drum against the tempest surrounding us. Its threads intertwined with the warmth of hope. Perhaps this was the moment to unravel the cruel tapestry woven from secrets, to confront the haunting phantoms of our pasts, and rebuild the legacy of our family, thread by thread. Avery's smile faltered slightly at the sight of our determined unity, and though his presence unnerved me, it also infused me with strength. Our past could try to define us, but we were ready to reshape our narrative. Then tell us what you know, quickly, I urged Emily. And as she began to recount the tales of long-buried secrets ready to claw their way to the surface, I felt that today could shatter the chains of history binding us, much like the glass that had scattered across our kitchen floor. And in that moment, tethered together by the stories that lay ahead, I knew we were not only facing a storm. We were preparing to harness its winds and rewrite our story, one filled not with shadows, but with courage, understanding, forgiveness, and the undeniable longing to reclaim our lives from the past's unyielding grip. As we prepared to claim the truth, the strength between us echoed through the walls of our home. Whatever lay ahead, we would weather the tempest together, standing firm in our unity, ready to welcome the dawn of a new beginning. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I believed that perhaps, just perhaps, our family could heal under the weight of every truth unearthed. And from that storm, we would emerge brighter than ever, like the sun peeking through the clouds after a tempest, illuminating everything in its path. In that charged kitchen, bound by our heritage and the creaking shadows of our history, hope flickered anew, illuminating the very essence of who we had always been, fragile yet resilient, flawed yet powerful, and undeniably united in our quest for a peace we could finally call our own. We stepped boldly into the storm, hand in hand, ready not just to face the truth but to forge our future from the ashes of our past. I took a deep breath, absorbing the warmth radiating from my family beside me. No matter what followed, I understood then that together we could defy every storm that threatened our paths, and finally, as I looked ahead into the horizon rippling against certainty's dawn, I felt the weight of my heart lift, filled with a powerful new truth, that our family, no matter the secrets once shrouded in darkness, was woven from a tapestry stronger than any storm.